For half of Aussies, an unavoidable part of ageing can leave them facing debilitating symptoms right at the peak of their career. But instead of getting the help they need, they're often expected to suffer in silence. Until now. It impacts everything from mental health and physical well-being to finances, jobs, retirement and relationships.
You go through bouts of depression and then you're anxious. I break down like this and I go, what is wrong with me?
I did see doctors and said, look, I'm feeling anxiety and low moods, I get cross easily, I can't sleep. Nobody, not a single GP, mentioned menopause.
The average Aussie woman hits menopause between 45 and 55 years old. More than 80% of them say the symptoms have negatively impacted their work, and most wouldn't feel comfortable speaking to their manager about support. Menopause is estimated to cost women in their early 50s more than $15 billion per year in lost earnings and super due to early retirement.
Menopause is one of the many ways that women are discriminated against in the workplace. Addressing the health needs of women is one way we can feel supported and can stay in work engaged for longer.
It's shocking stats like these that led to a Senate inquiry, which heard from hundreds of women on their experiences grappling with misinformation, outdated practices and a lack of knowledge about menopause symptoms.
Women told us that they've been forced to shop around sometimes 5 or 6 times to find a GP who they thought could give them good quality advice.
The report's recommendations include increased funding for research into long-term health impacts, more training for GPs on how to recognise and treat symptoms, public awareness campaigns and increased protections for women in the workplace.
Small changes can have big impacts, but the stigma around menopause is stopping these conversations. But often when there was a really easy fix for this, a desk fan at their desk, a more breathable uniform, maybe a slightly different start time.
As with any Senate inquiry, the proof is in those in power taking action and actually doing what has been recommended. Women are sick of being unseen, unheard and invalidated.
Frances Roger made a submission to the inquiry on her experience going through perimenopause and is with us now. Frances, tell us about that experience going through those early stages of menopause.
Look, to be honest, you get used to a rhythm in your body. And when that rhythm gets upset or gets distracted or made different, it can be very difficult for you to understand what's going on, and it can be a little bit anxiety-ridden. For me, I didn't actually know what was going on until CWA gave me the opportunity to put in the submission, and I was able to do the homework that required for me to learn. And in that, I understood that my anxiety and my depression, the heart palpitations, the strange feelings that I had in my body, the offset of my periods, which I just thought was a little bit normal but unusual, was normal, but I didn't realise it was the beginning of the next phase of my life.
Hormone replacement can be a godsend for a lot of women. Can help them feel really normal, but they're really expensive. A lot of them aren't listed on the PBS. Would you like to see the government subsidise more of this medication to get women back to feeling like themselves again?
Absolutely. I feel like we probably could use this as a first resort rather than a last resort. Even though they are expensive, they're probably on par cheaper than some of the antidepressants that you would be prescribed, anti-anxiety medication. Those are possibly not necessarily as necessary if we could use estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, or a combination of those.
Frances, one of the key areas of focus is more education for GPs on recognising and treating menopause symptoms. Did you encounter any difficulties with doctors?
Personally, I did. I found it difficult. If I hadn't have done the amount of research I had done for our submission, I don't believe I would have had the fortitude. I went into my doctor's appointment asking for estrogen terrified, and I came out marginally less terrified. But I knew what I knew and I was confident of what I needed. And I can't imagine if someone went in saying, I just don't feel right. And if you're not presenting with a hot flush, especially, which I did not, it's so easy to say, well, you might have anxiety or depression. At 40 years old, what's going on in your life. You might be having kids, you might be having a marriage breakdown. All of those are quite easily put down to anxiety and depression, but they could easily be assisted with a recommendation of HRT.
And you might also be filled with fury and rage, which is sound for myself.
Do we need to talk? Okay?
Don't talk. But what do you think is the number one thing we could change to make life better for women who are living through menopause?
Talk to your sisters, talk to your mothers, talk to your friends. Let them know that everyone, after this got some media attention, the number of people who reached out to me and said, I had no idea. And I didn't understand what they were going through. Talk to your friends, talk to them.
But not your male co-hosts. Okay, good to know that. Frances, talking very important, so it's been great to have the chance to speak to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
They don't call it menopause for nothing, you know what I'm saying? No?
Well, we have menopause.
Yeah, we can go through stuff.
Yeah.
You've actually done a documentary on this before, right?
Yeah, a couple of years ago I realised I knew nothing about it and I was coming into it, and ABC's Catalyst program asked me if I would do a program on it, and I thought, if I don't know anything about it, then there's probably loads of women who know very little about it. Previous generations didn't really talk about it. So I went in with my eyes wide open and I was kind of blown away. Every woman's experience is different. Every person's experience can have vastly different symptoms. A lot of doctors don't have a lot of education and training in it, and that's changing for the better. But yeah, knowledge is power.
Is that why it's hard to talk about, though? If everyone's experience is so different. Like, it's easier to talk about something when everyone has the same experience.
Yeah.
When it's diverting like that, how do you have that conversation?
Well, it's impossible to define.
Yeah.
Like, you can have wild anxiety, which I had, and so other people will have hot flashes or things like that. Like, but it's not a list of things that everybody gets. Yeah. I don't know how you treat that. We just need to get around the fact that we need to be looked after and loved and cared for.
Yes.
Very, very much.
Absolutely.
And lots of hugs and
Talking about
shush.
Yes.
Never forget, shush, Wally. I think that's a moral of it all.
The thing is, everyone at home will think that's showbiz, but I saw her eyes.
Yeah.
It was like,